thank everyone for joining us today. As our second part of our three-part Lunch and Learn series. So this second part goal is going to be to show you GP functionality that you work with today or you may not be aware of, depending on how you use GP, and what that might look like in Business Central. Really get you into BC a little bit to kind of see what it's like to work in that environment, that application, and get to know a little bit more about it. So part one was GP to Acumatica. So if you weren't able to attend that one, we do have that recording available, and you'd be able to see that one. Our third in the series will be on October 18th, where we're going to compare BC to Acumatica. So with that, I just wanted to say hello and thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing my video so I can jump right into the content, because I'll be jumping from screen to screen as we go through the different applications. So like I said, what we are doing today is BC to GP, or GP versus BC. So I want to get started with talking about GP, what its current status is, Microsoft 365 Business Central, which for anyone that's not aware, that's the original Microsoft Navision product that has now been brought to the cloud. It is a cloud product, but it is based on the original Navision product. So GP to BC, the user interface we're going to go through, trying to navigate the two different solutions, how that works, searching for things, storing information, sharing information. We'll focus a little bit on core accounting tasks and we'll get into reporting, some automations that are built into the solutions and options you have, and then we'll end with any questions that we might be able to, if we have time, but we have a lot to get through. That being said, GP's current life cycles, right? So for anybody that's aware, Microsoft has basically put GP into a modern life cycle mode. So if you're not on 18.2 or greater, then you're still in the fixed life cycle, and you have certain versions that are completely out of extended support, like GP 2013, GP 2015, 2016, 2018, and 18R2 are in extended support, which means there are no regulatory updates such as payroll, anything like that, payables, anything that would change regulatory wise, but it is still supported for security reasons and vulnerabilities. So Microsoft is still putting out patches only for that. If you're in the modern life cycle, then where we are today is in 2023. And so as of Monday, they just released 18.6, which is the latest version of GP. And so if you're interested in what that might look like, 18.6, we do have a post on our website where you can search for what's new in 18.6 to see if you're interested in that. But the modern life cycle is keeping you up to date on everything. But Microsoft is basically saying that they want you to stay within a year of the latest release. So that would mean with 18.6, they're saying, anything 18.5 and greater is supported. So 18.5 was released October of last year. The reality is most likely going to Microsoft for support would only mean that you had something significant happen and Cal is not able to address that issue, whatever that issue might be. So that's very rare, but in that scenario where we needed Microsoft to help, as long as you're on enhancement with Microsoft, then we could submit cases to Microsoft and they could assist. But again, we feel as though as long as you're within a year and a half of the latest release, which would mean right now it'd be 18.4, 18.5, 18.6 is where you'd be safe to say that you don't have any issues there with Microsoft support. So with that being said, let's get into the demo comparing GP to Business Central, right? So GP is a server client application. It does have a web client that as an option. It does require a web server, and so it's not what is considered a true cloud application. Business Central is now considered a true cloud ERP. It can be accessed from anywhere, anybody that has an internet connection. GP has multiple databases / companies, so you can have pretty much unlimited number of GP companies / databases, but without MEM functionality, which is an ISV product by binary stream. Each company would be its own separate database, and the companies do not share master records. It's truly separate login, log out. So what that looks like in GP, right, is on the main login screen. You have to go here based on your security. You would see which companies you can jump in and out of or log into, and then it's going to do the full login each time, loading up that application. So there is some time invested switching between companies, right? On the BC side of things, it is similar. So in BC's case, I would not be navigating or logging out. I would be going up here to my profile and my settings, and I would switch to company here. So I can go jump between companies this way. But it still is separate companies, and you have to log in, log out. And again, there is no sharing of master records or be able to just switch within this application itself. I can't just click here and switch the company quickly. I still need to go and then navigate between those companies. So if I go to my settings, I click company 2, it's re-logging just the way GP does, right? So with that being said, Microsoft Business Central does have similar functionality that can be added with binary stream for Business Central. So multi-entity management can be added to Business Central, which basically takes that single company, essentially, single database, if you will, and make it where you can decide whether or not you want to share master records and have that be able to quickly move between the different companies. So if you're one of those environments in GP where you've got lots of different companies, users constantly switching between them, certainly MEM would be one way that you can kind of really speed up that process, right? And it does do intercompany balancing with do froms. Same thing would be true of Business Central. Business Central does have something called dimensions, which for some Business Central clients, they might want to use a dimension to kind of pseudo essentially be able to record, but it's not going to do your intercompany. You'll have to build all that out. But there is some capability there with the dimensions to be able to basically call a dimension a company, if you would. Not true, intercompany, but something that would at least be closer to the solution. All right, so again, GP binary stream, where you can share the records. Business Central has a support right now with the latest release. They will support up to 300 different companies in one Business Central instance or tenant within Microsoft's cloud. So one license, but it would require MEM if you wanted to share the master records within one company. There is a little quick shortcut when you're in Business Central that if you're doing a lot of different companies, to get back to your profile, you just do an alternate T. So that would definitely make it a little quicker versus doing all the navigating. There's a lot of different shortcuts in Business Central that help you to do keyboard shortcuts to make up your speed up your navigation. So GP modules, right? We have modules, we have navigation panes on the left. Business Central has a command bar at the top. And then it uses this tell me search, right? They call it tell me what to do. So that's really the big navigation point when you're in Business Central, is really using tell me. So this is a demo environment in Microsoft's cloud, right? That I signed up for. So I'm in here, right? This is the tell me search, right? Tell me what to do. And then you just start searching and typing, and then it gives you a list, right? So rather than having menus across on the left like GP does, and across the top. So GP, we've got our navigation panes over here, and we've got our navigation up here, and it's very modularized that way. Business Central is doing it more of, so most people will go to searches and find what I'm looking for that way. So tell me what to do, right? You do have this actions or control up at the top, which does the command bar, which does have abilities, right, to then get you to sub, and depending on what your role is. So the big thing with, so if I control T, Alt T, sorry, Alt T will get me back to my role, and I can switch roles. So the roles are available based on the system setups. You define which roles you want to have visible as available roles, and I can switch between those roles. And when I switch to roles, it then gives me different command bar options. So this just changed and went to sales and purchasing, right? These are my bookmarks. So whenever I'm searching for something, right, I want to be able to search it and say vendor bills. I can just either go to the screen and I can bookmark it here. Or if you're in the search, you can bookmark it here. And then it's going to add it to your, essentially your favorites, right? In GP, you have your favorites that you can mark, which are on your home page. So you have some limited capabilities to have favorites on your home page. You have quick links, essentially, that you can set up. GP has tiles, so you take your smart lists and you can make them into reminders, right? So I could have put a new reminder, right? These are the built-in ones, right? And I can show queues. If I want to display it as a queue versus a list, configure that. Refresh my home page by clicking on the home. And if there was anything in those, they would show up. Because this is, that was the other company. So this is, right, GP, where I've got quick links. I've got my to-dos. Right here, I can go reminders. And if I wanted to display them as a queue, which gives them a little different visual, can't find anything with data, but the point is you would have visual indicators here that would be a queue, more like what BC does with these tiles. So BC puts tiles on the role page, this role page. So BC is very different in the search. For most cases, most people do, and then you add your bookmarks across here. So these, then you get into personalization. So personalizing the application is really changing the screen or data, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. So here, this is now personalizing the business manager role, but I'm personalizing for me. You can, as a admin, you can go and personalize the business manager role entirely, which would apply to all the users in that role. In this case, I'm doing it just for myself, right? So depending on what area I'm in, I can maybe hide this or move it or hide it or show it, right? So you have some, I can go here and, you know, show this now, and that is now going to be there on mine, right? If I get into other areas, I can again hide or show different areas. So if I don't want to see, let's say, this insight panel, I can hide it. And now it's hidden, right? I click done, and now I've changed it for myself. So along with that personalization, if I were to go to my vendors list, and I go into personalize, what's key up here is I can change the fields. I can change the position of the fields, right? Similar to smart lists, I can move I can't drag and drop in smart list, but I can move the fields and change which fields I want. So this is similar to a smart list in that regard, that I can change the different fields that I want to see. So maybe I want to see whether or not that particular vendor is blocked, right? So I just added that column, right? And if I don't want, let's say, location code, I can just click remove. Again, I'm personalizing for myself. I'm not doing it for anyone else. Again, so it's just another way that you can use the platform to help you with your searching or navigation. So within the search bars, so if I'm on this and I say I'm looking for Toby, right, it's searching and it's going to find Toby as a contact. So you can use the search here. You also have filtering you can use. So filtering is important. So it's kind of like smart list favorites, where you can create these filters, and then it's now, this is just one that's showing just balances, right? So I can define what the filter options are, and I'm not limited to 4 in the case of GP with smart list. You only have 4 without an add-on for smart list builder or smart list, smart view, enhanced smart list. Both give you the enhanced functionality on smart list to be able to do more than 4 filters. GP has quick links on its home pages, right? And so there's a central. If I click back to my company name, I click on the company name, it takes me back to my I'll call it the home page, right? And then I have my favorites across here that I use, and then depending on what my role is, really determines, how do I put what is I need quick access to right away based on that role, right? So BC also allows pop-out windows. So I've opened this window for sales quotes and open in a new window. It now pops it out, kind of the way GP opens windows, right? So now I've got BC is still open here. And if I want to put it as a tab, I could, kind of do something like that. So if I'm operating or using that particular page in BC, which is a screen, but they call it a page, right? The web page. Then that would be how I would be able to easily accomplish getting a lot of different screens open. I can also duplicate my tab here, and now I'm going to have basically, I'm now running BC twice, right? And so I'm able to do that as well. So you do have some functionality there. The way that GP does, or way that BC does its windows. So if I go to my vendors, and let's say I go into my filter, I give it a new name. So other things on these windows, right? I can expand it all the way. They also have these fact boxes, which can be very helpful, right? Because I can now look here, and this is something you have the similar functionality in GP if you're using GP's navigation panes. And if I go to my navigation pane, so if I go to purchasing, and I were to go to vendors, which is the navigation list. Second to load up, right? So here, as I'm clicking, the information on the right is changing, and I'm able to see kind of a snapshot of what's going on with that vendor without having to actually open or run a separate or go to a different screen or anything like that, right? And then if I want to open this vendor up, I click on the vendor. This is the vendor card, right? I can navigate back, but if I wanted to keep that open for some reason, again, I would use the pop-out window functionality. Again, it opens not as a tab, but you can change it and make it a tab. So that way you're able to, again, have that as an open tab as well. Back to GP. Right. This is similar functionality. I've got my metrics over here, these different KPIs, and I've got information across the bottom, current balance, so forth and so on, right? So you can kind of get there with this. I can create a filter in GP to say, okay, I want to know, as long as I have the balance as a column, and you got to again, personalize these. So I would have to save as demo. And now once I save this as a demo, as a navigation list, now one of the drawbacks navigation lists with GP is they can't get, especially have large data sets, lots of vendors, lots of customers, lots of items, they can't get slow. But now because I've done that, I can customize this and I can change the columns, change the action pane, so I can kind of do some. So there's the current balance, right? If I want to move that up in the list, similar GP functionality. Right, so there's some similarities, again, but they're different platforms, right? All right. Business Central is a full ERP. Comes in two different flavors, right? So one that basically has field service and manufacturing, and one that doesn't. Two different price points. It is based on, like I said, the old Navision product. And so they basically took and just gave it a web front end to the Navision product, and then of course they renamed it to Business Central, just so that way they could just differentiate, because there are still clients out there running Navision, right? So GP Home, right? We've got our navigation lists, our home pages, and Business Analyzer, and in Business Central, we've got some similarities, just a little bit different way to navigate, right? Business Central uses queues and tiles, and these tiles are actual live data, unlike GP. Right, so if I go back to here and I want to see an unprocessed payment, right, I click there and it brings me right to it. Okay. Now, I can't create new tiles without some customizations, so just keep that in mind. If it's something that there's a lot of different products for Business Central out there on Microsoft's App Source, hundreds, and there are new ones being added every day, basically by ISVs. So some of the ISVs, independent software vendors, you would know based on they've been in the GP space, like Binary Stream, right? So there are definitely a lot of ones that you might be familiar with that are in both spaces, and then there are ones that came from the Navision side of the house, and therefore they just now took their product and made it for BC. The search bar at top, our search screen. So if I go back to that search, right, you really are seeing everything. So as I start typing, it says, okay, you want age open payables. I've got 42 entries here that have pay in it, right? And I'm able to see all these. I can bookmark these if I wanted to. So if that was something that I wanted to get back to quite often, right? So if I want to pay a vendor, because that's something I do, it's now bookmarked. So you really get all those in that list. Let me shrink. You can expand these. Sorry, I'll go back to my search again. And what else do you have in here? So we've got all our pages, tasks. We've got our reports, our analysis that include that, right? And again, you can bookmark those. It's by default, it only shows 3, but you can show all. So if that's what you're looking for, documentation, that's going to take you out to Microsoft, right? So, well, let me put in payables, because that way it would be a better search. So you get some here, and then you can even get out to Microsoft's documentation eventually on it. So take you out of Microsoft site as well. So you definitely have with searching. Now, what you don't get when you're searching is it's not going to find your master records or things like that. It's very similar to GP in that regard. You have to first know what you're looking for, right? I can't just type in a vendor name and find that vendor through my search, right? So if I type in Fabricam, I'm not going to find Fabricam, right? So the search is really just the application search. What else can you do in these? So you can do filtering, right? So if I go back to this, let me go back to my vendors, right? So you can keep having more filters. You don't have to show the filters if you don't want to. You don't have to show it. You can hide the fact box if you don't want to see it, right? So you kind of control that. Again, Business Central is a true cloud ERP. We run in any browser. So when we're talking about doing that, that means it will scale, right? So as I change the size of my platform that I'm using, it's adjusting to try and show you how it should show that data, right? So it does scale. BC does have a mobile platform that's included as well, which does give you some of the same functionality that you have in the main ERP browser-based product. Bookmarks, right, top of the bar. So this is our command bar, and this is really controlled by our role that we pick. Again, it's even if I pick a role that's accountant, if I'm not, if my security does not allow me to see that information, I can still pick the role, but I'm not going to see anything that I shouldn't see that's not defined in the security. So it still has full security. It's just that role you can flip between roles. And then you have the pop-out screen functionality. So you can have multiple at the same time. Again, you can't have multiple vendor cards open. At BC, you can kind of get to that point if you open those tabs up or pop them out and then open another one, pop it out. You can duplicate them. So searching, storing, so GP options, you got your inquiry screens, you got your smart list, you got your navigation lists. BC, we've got our search, we've got inquiry, and that includes our inquiries, our reports, our help documentation. We can move columns. So again, back to BC, and I will pull my vendors. So this is where we again personalize it, and I can do that at a role level. This is a pretty cool feature here, which is kind of like so you can exclude it from the quick entry. You can also set the freeze pane. So, you know, if you just saw that, this bar is now moved. So the other columns, I could scroll through if I had more columns. So if I add a few more columns here. So if I was scrolling, if I had to scroll a scroll bar at the bottom, these two columns would now stick, kind of like freeze panes in Excel. So it's something you can't do in a smart list or any of the GP lookups, right? The BC list, you have filters. Like I said, you can create those. If you want custom lists, like you can create in Smart List Designer, sorry. So in Smart List Designer, you'll be able to create your own smart lists in GP, right? So for anybody that doesn't have Smart List Builder with the newer versions of GP, you get Smart List Designer, which allow you to build out essentially a new query, thereby creating a new smart list. Unfortunately, BC, I can't do that without adding an add-on product or doing customizations to the platform itself. GP user defined fields, very limited based on the different record types. BC is also limited in that regard, but there are add-on products for BC that allow you to easily create new fields, new screens, without having to go the development route. So there's some pretty good solutions out there that have been, again, most of those have come from the nav space, and therefore they just ported it over to Business Central. BC support on document attachments is limited, but again, there is an add-on as of right now anyways, is actually a free add-on that actually improves that functionality quite a bit to be able to just drag and drop attachments to any of the different screens in BC, transactions, master records, and such, so that we can kind of get away from having all paper copies anywhere. So it does enhance that capability. Like I said, there is some capabilities, but not to the extent that, like I said, so that's why there's add-ons for that. It does provide you the personalized list, the pages and the screens. So again, I was in a vendor list before, but I wasn't on the vendor, right? So, but here I go again, personalize. So you do have some capabilities here to be able to, hide fields that you don't want to see, remove them. If it doesn't apply to you and your users, again, this can be done. And so that way you don't need that. And then, or show always. So show always would mean that when I show less, it would still be there versus the show more. So you can see these sections are growing and shrinking. And then if I, don't want to see the journal section at all, because I want to focus on this other section, address and contacts, I can focus here. So, they do give you some capabilities to kind of control this environment better and really make it your own. And then across the top here, you've got different functionality. So again, I'm still in the personalization mode. But if there were other fields that I wanted to add to that section that I didn't see, right, I can add that to that section. And now that field is now on the screen, right? If I don't want to see it at all, because it doesn't apply to me, take it off. And if I were to, really make a mess of things, I can always just hit clear personalizations. And then you have some options here. And now it's going to be back to standard once I do that. And of course, it warns me that I can't undo it, which is fine. So you do have some real flexibility there in what you can do as far as controlling the screens themselves, adding fields to the screens, taking them away. And you have all these different tabs here, that action buttons. I personalize, right? So you kind of, maybe I want a new document, and then it's going to ask me what type of document, vendor. I can go to statistics. So they kind of put a lot of information when you're on the given cards to be able to get to all that associated information without having too much trouble. There are approvals. So pretty much on every record, you can set up approvals, whether it be master records or transactional records. So a lot of functionality there. Sharing of info. So emailing is built into Business Central. Lists can be shared, exported to Excel. Some lists can be edited in Excel. And then there's web services lists that are exposed. So pretty powerful functionality on the editing side of things. So again, personalizing the list, which fields, save your filters. The share button, open in Excel, edit in Excel, share in Teams. So let me go ahead and jump in there, show you what that looks like. Again, this is some pretty nice functionality. Really impressed by what they've done with this, right? So if I'm on my vendor list, I can open in Excel, which is just going to take this list and dump it to Excel, right? Edit in Excel, we're going to get to in a minute. Copy links is literally going to copy this the page link, so you could send it to somebody if you wanted them to look at that, whatever that page is, right? Hey, look at this vendor, look at this item, look at this sales transaction, look at this vendor invoice, right? You can copy that link when you're on it and share it. If you're using Microsoft Teams, again, Microsoft wants to leverage the Microsoft platform, so they're going to integrate. So I can literally share this, and it's going to, as long as so Business Central is using my John D at Calzone, right? It knows who I am when I log into Business Central. It's all tied through the Microsoft accounts. So it does want to tie to all of that, but this is now allowing me to actually share this with somebody that's in my Microsoft Teams. So pretty cool feature. But the one that's probably the slickest one is edit in Excel. So it now is download that Excel. I open the Excel. Open the file in Excel. There we go. Thank you. Enable editing. And now it's going to retrieve the data from Business Central. And over here, it's got a connection. And if I were to change something, so let's say I want to make put a name on this one for one thing. Right. And then first up consultants, I maybe go to blocked. Privacy blocked. So make that one so it's not everybody can do transactions on it, right? So I can see and I can edit these fields, and then I also have the ability to click new. So you actually can create new records in here through this, and then ultimately you would publish this up to Business Central. And so now it's publishing. Publish successful, workbook updated. Go back into BC. So no name here. Blocked. Let me just refresh this page. My name has been updated. This one's now blocked. So again, pretty powerful functionality. This exists on a large number of screens, right? So I can do master records. I can do journal entries, a lot of different places where you can use that in Excel to be able to improve how the users are able to do things, right, versus having to manually edit each record in the application itself. And it does validate. So if I try and change something that I can't, or I put an invalid value, it's not going to stop me in Excel, but when it tries to publish, it will give you an error message letting you know that that's not something you can do. Business Central Web Services, exposing to GP has OData as well for anybody that's on, and it's just a matter of setting up OData, and then you're able to expose GP data out. So let me go here to Web Services, search. These are all the out-of-the-box web services. And so you have sorting functionality inside these grids as well, which is nice. Nice that you can do that. So let me grab my vendor card Excel. I'm going to copy this link and jump in. I'll put myself in a sheet. Data, get data, other sources, OData. Again, this is going to do validation. I have to be signed into Excel with my Microsoft account, and then it will go out to BC, authenticate. So not anybody can just grab that URL. You literally have to be a BC user to be able to get this information this way, right? So I can load the data, I can transform the data. So I'm just going to load it. Again, so there's another way that you can get data out of BC to be able to do any ad hoc reporting. Now I've got 3 different OData queries here. So I've got some other purchasing data, right? I've got bills, and now I've got the center. So I can do some Excel analysis that way. You also use the transform button. So pretty powerful tools. Core accounting functions. So we're going to focus on accounts payable, right? So AP invoice, new purchase invoice, copy documents. There's something called a purchase journal in Business Central. So back when the vision first came out, it was modular based. And so you had your general journals, you had purchase journals, or you could add the purchasing module, right? So that's why you have purchase invoices, which is what most people will use, or you have the more simplistic, right? If I've only got to hit one GL account, and is it for one vendor, then I can use purchase journals and do a lot quicker entry that way. So line details. So you can use recurring purchase lines to be able to kind of add functionality or add quickly to the transaction related information. So GP has that functionality that many people like, which is on the vendor card. my navigation list. I go to my accounts, and then you have on your purchases, you've got your additional accounts, right? So this is a nice feature in GP to be able to have, and you can define whether you want those distributions to always show up with a zero value, but default onto the transaction. So you can just put in the amounts that you want on that payables transaction. So really nice functionality that way. In order to get that kind of similar functionality in BC, again, you would be using something called the recurring purchase lines, where you can then kind of create that definition of what that recurring purchase line looks like. I'm doing my searching. So I'm gonna add a new one. Right, and now I can add a bunch of different GL accounts here, and then I could use this I have to pick the right account that I can use, but basically I can add a bunch of accounts here, and then I could use them. And I'm keying in account numbers, but I can also just type in the description. It's a nice feature. Again, with GP, I would need something like Rockton Smart Fill to be able to do those lookups without having to go to the separate lookup screen. So you can do that as well. And one of the things you may notice when you're using BC or when I'm using it is that as I'm editing, right, it's continually saving. So when I'm making, you don't have to click save button every time. That's a pro for some people. Other people want the ability to be able to do an undo, and that I don't really have because it's already been saved, right? So depending on where you are and what you're doing, keep in mind that it's been saved. Now, we'll talk about audit trails in a minute, and that's one way that you can see what happened and be able to undo that or unscramble that egg. So recurring purchase lines is one way to get that. You have your accounts and your dimensions. So dimensions you can pretty much use almost however you like. So a lot of people that may have used or are using analytical accounting with GP, it gives you that ability to basically have your analytical accounting codes be separate from your GL accounts, and then you just define where you want to relate those. So you can either use them on transactions or you can't. A little bit cumbersome to use in GP, but it was, definitely was interesting functionality that they added, and there were some downsides to it, I think, with analytical accounting, just the way that the financial reporting had to work. But overall, it definitely added some of the similar functionality. So if you're familiar with analytical accounting, then dimension codes would be more similar to that, right? So you've got your chart of accounts in BC that's separate from your analytical or your dimensions, right? My chart. Interesting that you can see financial information directly in here, unlike GP, right? GP's chart of accounts can't do that. And then you've got all these different controls here that you have within this, right? So if I were to go to a particular account, so it's kind of like GP summary, where you've got that monthly summary view and net change. So in GP, we've got our account summaries, smart list as well. Right, so you've got your accounts and you've got your periods and you've got your summary debits and credits. So some similarities there. Same process for three-way matching as your expense. So you can do a purchase invoice. I can do a purchase invoice and have an expense on it if maybe they charge me freight, along with doing my invoice matching, right? A little different functionality than maybe the way you would do it in GP, right, through purchase invoice matching. In this case, it's a little bit different. We'll show you that in a second. And then you can attach files, and then they go from open to released, and then you do post those transactions at a transaction level, or they get queued up for posting. Process a check run, and then all the AP bill lines or purchase invoice details will be in the general ledger for full visibility. So Business Central purchase invoices, different functionality. So we go to the purchase invoice. So you can do multiple ways you can do it, right? So I could go from here, go to purchasing, purchase invoices, or if I wanted to maybe take a look at what the vendor had first, right? So show my fact box here, see what's going on. You know, do I have any open invoices for them, right? Anything like that. I got that this vendor is selected. So depending on what vendor I go to, I can then go up here to new document and do a purchase invoice or a purchase order. So here I went to a purchase invoice. I got my general information across the top. I've got my invoice number, which is a required field with a big star on it, right? And then it gets down here into, all right, defaulting to item, right? But I could go, say this is just an expense. Again, this is now from an item number, it's switched over to my GL account. So I'll put in that's one way. Inside of these different actions is where you can find other things like get the recurring purchase lines. And if I define a recurring purchase lines for this vendor, now you can see it just dropped those on there. So again, you can kind of get that similar functionality. There's additional accounts by doing that for this given vendor, and then you're able to fill in the information, delete the line if I don't need it. Done with my lines. Now, again, if I needed to select items, this is where you can actually go out and pick an item. If you were to do that, you can actually do inventory receipts essentially through this. So posting, there is a preview. So if you like to review your edit list essentially in GP before you actually were to post, you can do that here. So GL activity, right? So it kind of gives you a similar functionality to those edit lists that you have in GP. If I go to line functions, I go out here and get receipt lines is how I would be doing a purchase receipt. And it adds a comment line in here just so it kind of gives you that information that it's from the receipt. And then I can, if they only billed me for 3, I can put that on here, right? And now I can post. And now it's scheduled for posting, and behind the scenes, it will have a posting queue essentially that's going to post that for us. So again, one screen, you're able to do expenses, three-way matching, all through this purchase invoice. Again, the purchase journal, which I don't have on that now, but again, lots of different ways to find what you're looking for. So purchase journal is where I can literally just start doing lines, right? So if I had one expense account, I'd go ahead and create here's the vendor, the amount. Another vendor. Okay, that one is blocked because I blocked it earlier, right? So I can't use it. So a different way, again, these are saved. Back to my home, which you see that's, I've got to click there, but if I click the pin, now it's pinned there permanently. So it's a little easier to find so that we get to it quicker. Not gonna worry about that for now, but as a general concept of purchase journals is to be able to do more quick entry. You do have copy. Copy document is a nice feature, right? So let's say I go back to I'm on Fabricam and I say I want to do a new invoice, right? And they keep sending me the same invoice over and over again. So again, find these functions in here. Copy document. So what type of document do I want to copy? Invoice. And now grab the old one. Include the header information, recalculate lines, what I want to do. So it pulls that forward. So you can copy documents. I didn't want to copy the header information because I want to re-enter that invoice. And this exists throughout the application. Reporting. Some big differences in GP, right? GP's got report writer. They've got SQL reporting services, which uses the Microsoft report builder through SQL, which is so and it has Word templates, right, for GP. So I didn't mention SSRS here, but you definitely have SSRS reports, and a lot of people use SSRS for GP reporting, custom reporting, build any reports you want, right? So Business Central, the Word templates are a lot easier to use. And you can have lots of versions. So these are all the reports. And then when you're looking at the list, you'll see the different types. You'll see some that say Word, some that are RDLC, which is the Microsoft reporting solution. If you have not seen that before, what it looks like is so it's a very powerful tool. So you can do some very complex reporting in here. So this is an example where I took the report from DC, exported it out, the template out, the layout out, and then I updated it and imported it back in. So again, very powerful report writing tool. So you're able to customize the reports that are in here. It is not easy to create truly custom reports. Again, they want you to use the Microsoft stack to be able to do that. exporting data out to another platform, using APIs to pull information out, but they don't really give you an easy way to create new reports easily in Business Central and add them to the platform without doing some level of customization or buying someone's add-on products for Business Central. So, but definitely the Word templates, they're much easier than GP Word templates. So if anybody's worked with those, it's a much easier solution than the GP Word templates, because Word templates with GP uses Report Writer, whereas in this case, these I can literally here Word. So I select this one, purchase order, export layout, open up my Word. And here's the layout. Now I can change it. You would need to activate this developer one to be able to do all the functionality you need. But you definitely have much easier capabilities of easily modifying your Word templates if you want to go that route. So GP has Smart List, Business Central has the lists that are literally built into the application. Whenever you're searching and you see a word list, that's really, for a lot of people, is reporting, right? So again, search, type in list, what's going to do for me? Okay, so sales price list, but basically you can see the type here is list, right? So anything that says list in the type is really what you're going to be able to take and grab that. Right, so this is a list, and again, so for purposes of, you can send emails, but here is really that export to Excel. So kind of similar to functionality to GP, but you're, instead of using Smart List to do that, you're doing the actual lists themselves. And we went over the OData. So GP Financial Report Writer has built-in AFA that no one uses, Advanced Financial Analysis. And then they added, that's in the GP product. Again, nobody uses that one. And then GP Management Reporter, most GP clients use, which is based on columns and rows. And if anybody's used that, Business Central has something similar where it uses columns and rows. Big difference being is there is no data mart, there's no syncing, it's built into the platform. Financial reports, here's my financial reports. All right, so I want to run an income statement. Pretty simple. Again, it's using columns and row sets. So, column definitions, row definitions is what it's using to build those out with. So again, built in. So definitely a step up from Management Reporter, and similar functionality. So GP has KPIs on the homepage. Right, so these KPI widgets, right, they can be created in SSRS, and again, that's essentially reporting for most people. BC has the tiles, right? That's the only thing that is similar to that. BC does have an integration to Business Central. So, I mean, I'm sorry, BC, it's a Power BI. So therefore, obviously, you can bring that Power BI back into BC and have that information exposed. Back to my homepage. I don't have Power BI hooked up, but if I did, right, you could be able to grab some Power BI reports, put them on the homepage here, which you can do that as well in GP. So it's not a new thing. You just have to pay for the license of Power BI and then integrate the data with GP, BO data, with BC. You got the web services, and so you're rolling it that way. GP auditing. So changes that have been made to transactions or details without an add-on product, you have very little ability to know what happened. Business Central has change logs, so important one there. So you get to that. I'm going to sort this the other way. So you can see here payment terms. I have some fields being audited. Modifications, so inserts, modifications, and deletions. Some of the fields are being done. And then on customers, I've set this all fields are being tracked all the time, right? So it is nice. You can set retention policies on that as to how long you want it to be, depending on. So that's some nice functionality as well to be able to do that. So again, don't have that in GP without adding add-ons to it. So that is built into the product. So true reporting, again, Business Central leverages Microsoft Report Builder. It is a very powerful tool, and the Word templates are easier than GP. Your financial statements are built in, and you can personalize the columns that are on your list. So therefore, you can, again, similar to Smart List, but you're doing it inside of the BC list, the main list that you use to really access any records or transactions. Again, change log we just talked about. So you can activate that for any table, and then you'll be able to see those changes as they happen. Automation. So GP, very little out of the box, but you can with add-ons. So either Integration Manager, which is with GP, which gives you some capabilities. Smart Connect gives you more enhanced capabilities, and there are posting tools that you can add on to GP that will auto post things, and in some cases can auto transfer order to invoice and things of that nature. So 18.4, the workflows got added to GP, and so your ability to actually in approvals would actually post transactions through the workflow. 18.5, those approvals can originate now from email approvals, and there's quite a bit of functionality for anybody that hasn't started using a GP workflow within that workflow with approvals. So it's definitely a nice feature. So Business Central has AP automation, document OCR functionality. So call it incoming documents. So here I've got some incoming documents that came in, right? And then I can take these, I can review them and create payables for transactions, or I can relate them to a purchase order. So BC also has a nice Outlook plugin. So it's a very powerful tool. Outlook. All right, so here I've got this invoice that came in. Set the vendor. And now I'm over here, and I've got contact insights, which is basically looking into Business Central. Again, it's using my Microsoft account. So therefore I can potentially create a new contact if I wanted to, right? Directly from Outlook. But more importantly, I also have this new button here where I can put sales quotes, invoices, orders, purchase, and a purchase invoice, right? So I can create those inside of BC. And I would select the vendor because it's not matching on anybody because I'm not in there. And now it's suggesting an item. And I'm really creating an invoice in so really have drag this over. Essentially, I mean, they really built out the Outlook plugin when you're using Microsoft Outlook to work with BC. Pretty nice functionality here as well. So it's definitely something to look at between the contacts and what the capabilities are. BC's integrations, they have hundreds of ISVs, independent software vendors that are creating add-on solutions for BC through the app source, Microsoft App Source. You know, it is a little bit daunting to think about, what that means for the platform as far as how many solutions are out there. And some of those are long-time nav solutions that have ported over to BC. Other ones are, GP that brought it over to BC. And then you've got other ones that are brand new to the space. So you do have to be very careful. You don't, even though a lot of them are free to try, right? You can't just put that into a production environment and hope for the best, right? So you'd have to stand up a sandbox, which you can't get through BC, through Microsoft. They give you a sandbox. You can request one, and then you could download it into this sandbox, try it out. If it works for you, then you would probably most likely have to pay for it unless it was a free one. Most of them are free to try. A lot of them are free to try. Some of the bigger solutions add-ons for BC are more like the GP ISVs, where you got to get a demo, you got to get the pricing, because it's a very big solution. A lot of the ones that are in app source are very small, compartmentalized, kind of small ads for BC. And then BC integrates with Power Automate. So for anybody that was familiar with Power Automate, or what used to be Microsoft Flow, so if I go to a vendor, you can see this almost everywhere in the application. I can go to Power Automate, I can create a flow, I can manage flows. So with that functionality, you can kind of really, again, when it comes to automations, you have a lot of power there, which you can do with Power Automate. Again, the Business Central Outlook add-ins, AP incoming documents, be able to do that. It works with three-way matching, works within the Outlook add-in, and you can send those invoices into BC, and they'll be queued up so you can then process them. And that we are getting close to the end here. So GP, as you may or may not be aware, new release 18.6 just came out on Monday, and again, that's out on our site. So you can see that. Business Central Wave 2 was just released on October 1st. So keeping that in mind, there's both GP has one major release a year, but they have three somewhat so like service packs throughout the year. I'm sorry. And then Business Central has 2 waves a year. So they have wave 1, which has a whole set of features, and then they come in around October and do wave 2. Now, what does that mean for somebody that's running BC? You have to manage those upgrades, right? So keep that in mind that, they're going to do it automatically unless you go into your administration portal and control when that is going to happen. And say, I want, you got to request your sandbox, and then you can do your own testing. And then as long as you don't find any issues, then you can schedule your upgrade. But you need to be on that, because it's definitely something that you have to be aware of. And if you start having customizations for Business Central, then you absolutely need to test everything to make sure it's all going to work. If you got add-ons for Business Central, you need to make sure. So you will be having to do those upgrades. It's not an option. You have to upgrade twice a year, and you just have to control that upgrade path. So as your GP partner, we know this is a huge decision. GP is not going away. We're going to continue to support GP. We expect, and what we're hearing from many clients is, you're going to pry it out of our hands before we're going to stop using GP. They've really, done a great job of, again, adding solutions, customizing GP to really automate. And it's a great ERP solution today. It's just not a cloud solution. So that's a big differentiator there, right? We are offering a one-on-one consultation if you want to take a deeper dive to look at your specific GP deployment, what you have related to GP and your other systems. Again, depending on what you're doing, maybe you're using a different CRM solution, maybe you're using Outlook, who knows what you're doing. But the point is, there are some features that exist in Business Central for some light CRM functionality. And then there's some nice add-ons to be able to enhance that a little bit. Again, it's without having to use Microsoft CRM. Another thing to keep in mind about Business Central, when people are speaking about Microsoft, they say Microsoft Dynamics 365. Well, Microsoft Dynamics 365 includes over 15 different solutions. And unfortunately, Microsoft likes to change the names even sometimes to make it more confusing. So Microsoft CRM is now CE. You know, business, Navision is now Business Central. Part of that same stack of products is F&O, Finance and Operations, which is the old Exapta product, or AX, when Microsoft renamed it to Dynamics AX. Again, that's a large company platform, whereas BC is tiered more for the small to medium-sized businesses. So just keeping that in mind. When you're doing research, if you're doing research on Business Central, make sure that you see Business Central, because otherwise you could be looking at a CRM demo, which is a completely different solution, right? Do they integrate? Again, you have to build an integration. They don't instinctively know how to talk to each other. There's still two different solutions, right? There is some capabilities there, but again, you have to build out an integration. So when you're doing research about what your other options are for Business Central or anything like GP, or in our next Lunch and Learn, again, we'll be comparing BC to Acumatica, pros and cons, what the features are. Again, these are all things you have to keep in mind.